An update tonight on the sexual assault flyers posted on UTSA's campus. We told you last week the university is conducting an investigation. New tonight, the women who posted those flyers are coming forward and talking to Eyewitness News reporter Sharon Coe.
Physically, emotionally, mentally.
These two students are behind the first flyers on campus.
Start with this Change Rape Culture initiative.
Camilla Factory and Taylor Waits posted them last Monday. The women wrote they were, quote, taking a stand against rampant sexual assault and abuse on campus and in the world. They left an email address to encourage survivors to write them. They held a meeting and say more than 40 women attended.
But there are hundreds of women that come forward and say exactly who these people are and what they do and what they continue to do. And they are met with, there is no proof, or there's not enough tangible proof.
A UTSA spokesman says they contacted the students to see if they can help. Staff reached out 4 times to that listed email, including President Taylor Amy, who wrote 2. But the women say they have not responded because they do not believe the university will do enough to help survivors.
We're saying we're done with these discussions because nothing is getting done. And so so now it's up to us to make that change. And Title IX is a problem around America. It's not just at UTSA.
President Amy addressed the flyers in a campus-wide email. He provided more than a dozen resources available on campus. The university hired an independent law firm to investigate the claims made in other flyers, those named alleged sexual assault offenders. Sharon Coe, KENS 5, Eyewitness News.